Happy Saturday. Hello, hello. Hey, Rihanna Journey. Always forgetting about time zones. It's always 5 o'clock somewhere. But here it's time for game dev. We'll keep working. I think we're at a kind of fork in the road here. All right. My epic cinematic background song. It's kind of stealing the scene from me. Will not do. I'm gonna let it finish though. If anything, because we're being lazy today. It's a lazy Saturday for game dev. But yeah, we'll be working on our isometric FTL-like in Godot. Coming very obliquely in Godot. Hey Arneo. All right, I see the Bernard acrobatics at play here. The backflip Bernard. That's fun. Hey, Sapphire, Arneo, Magoo. All right, the gang's almost here. I'm sure Nyx's script bot thing that is stream streak saver is here, even if Nyx is asleep. So yeah, let's get going, huh? We got some stuff. I got some stuff to do today. Hopefully everyone in the big storm is doing all right. Probably includes Diginanigans. It's probably busy shoveling snow. Watch out for exploding trees. What's on the menu today, Arneo? Some thinking, some big ideas are on the menu for today about other ways we can handle the tile drawing. Because we're having some issues with that. We're having some issues regarding the performance of doing this kind of tile drawing. I don't know if just utilizing canvas item custom drawing stuff is going to be better, but I want to try it. I think we're going to try it. What I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to revert some things back to a less strobe light effect. We're just going to eat the performance issue, and we'll probably... Let's try a couple things real quick. So the easiest thing to do would be to just do this all in order. Set defer didn't do anything. I'm going to rename these threaded. And we're going to have a linear variation of this. Just to avoid the problem that we ultimately need to get around here. So we're going to make variations of this. Func, receive, tile, map, data, linearly. Arguably, I don't need to do this in 2 steps, but I'm gonna, just for consistency. Sapphire, simple Saturday, chillin' playing Factorio. Finished watching A Call to Arms. Nice, nice. How was yesterday's stream? It was good, it was good. We tried a bunch of different stuff. We identified what I would call like some fairly unavoidable issues with our sneaky, neat little implementation of trying to go wide and multi-thread our process for passing the tile map data back to the tiles. Problem is it's not happening at the same time, so it's leading to this desynchronization thing. And I think that's an unsolvable problem when done that way because of how tile map layer is set up. So we're thinking about, I'm going to fix some stuff so that I can still demo this process. But we're thinking about doing some exploration into canvas item draw calls as an alternative, which would be neat. It would also provide us a consistent API for drawing objects in our scene, whether or not they are tiles, which is interesting. I think it's actually more in line with the principle behind our division of the rendering and simulation layers. So I'm actually kind of down for this. I'm going to say unpack tile map data linearly. So we'll say for I in range. The range being layer count. Sounds like we're gonna be more in Godot today. Kind of. We're gonna get into Godot to get out of Godot. No, I think the direction we're gonna go is just thinking of a drawable as a thing that exists on a canvas item at a certain Z index. So we'll split the space in the same way that we split the space up into like Z index tiers of tile map layers. We're going to do a similar thing, but with canvas items, which will be interesting. It'll make the scene tree that much more stable, which is neat. But I don't know. It's worth a try. Godot's pretty good. Canvas item is still a high enough level construct that we get to ignore a lot of low level stuff like managing memory and things like being passed to the GPU and batching draw calls and stuff like that. Like, I think it's high enough level that we don't have to dig too deep into anything, but it's low enough level, or it's custom enough that I think we'll be able to achieve what we want. We might eventually be able to do some neat stuff with those different Z levels. We'll see. We'll see. The good news is this is not technically work on the editor, so no making fun of you. Yeah, technically this is at a lower level than working on the editor, so it's actually worse in many ways, but thanks. I appreciate the dispensation. Godot is scary? No, Magoo. Godot is life. Yeah, this is worse than working on the editor. How's everyone doing? How's the weekend going? Actually don't need to declare this thing, huh? Might be simpler though. Block layers, layer index dot set deferred. map data layer slice. All right, what's the problem? What are you upset about? Layer index not right. So we'll say for layer index in range layer count. There we go. So now we can hook up a linear version of this that we want. Chat gave Dave a dispensation. We better be tile mapping again on Tuesday. Yeah, we might never tile map ever again. This might be the end of tile mapping from a technical standpoint. Kind of a shame. We might get to the point where the only remaining tile map layer is the input mapper. We'll see. I think it's worth exploring. I do want to try to scope it to some extent. Like, I would like to spend like a week on this. Ideally, we get our canvas drawing up next week. Like we just are drawing on the canvas using a similar process for deciding what to draw. I'm hoping there's some neat stuff you can do by transforming the stuff getting drawn to the canvas item. I'm hoping we can use that to handle some of our camera rotation stuff. Excited about that, possibly. All right, let's get linearly drawing again. So we'll say receive tile map data linearly. We arguably don't need to do this as a task anymore, but I might continue to do it just because whatever. Blasphemy, or maybe we should celebrate. Yeah, we'll see. Tile mapping is dead. Long live tile mapping. In a month or two, you'll probably be converting it back to tile map layers. That is literally how it goes. So there's no use fighting that. Most of the time, you do something just to find out it wasn't the right approach. That's just how it is. You could, if we succeed, you would argue that all the months we spent tile mapping were that. And if we fail, you'll argue that, you know, the time we spend on this was that. It's really unavoidable. All right, so now we have regular, just standard run-of-the-mill drawing here. And it's great. And you'd be like, Dave, what's wrong? Why are we worried about this? Where's the problem? And the problem comes when we start doing some big stuff. Okay, I need to undo the task orientation part of this. I can't be having that. Okay, we're gonna fully unthread this so that they're guaranteed to update simultaneously. And we're gonna do that by removing the job structure from this part. So we're going to get rid of task handle. Task handle is going to go away. We're going to treat tile drawing as a linear process. So goodbye task handle. We could arguably go back to using shared stuff. But we might thread this again in the future, so I'm gonna leave it like this. Arnio, you're gonna switch the dev co-working to some self-care today. Nice, nice. We're gonna put up some timers for cleaning your room, cooking food. God willing, getting some normal sleep again. Good luck with that. Yeah, I only really get full normal sleep on the weekends. Part of the reason why we start so late on Saturday. And you got to do it. You got to set some time. All right. So this is no longer, we're not doing this task handled thing anymore. Turn this into an expression body. Well, not technically an expression body, but all right. Are we working? Can you see me now? That's the annoying part, is this is like pretty performant. But the part of this that you can see on screen, we counted it approximately. It's like maybe a third of the maximum buildable area. Yeah, it's about a third. Less if you can think of the volume that this creates. In terms of area, it's about a third. So this is like operations at this scale are fine. We don't have to rely on the Z indexer. We can just do this ourselves now, which is neat. But look at that. We're updating more tile map layers, and it's getting so slow. This is happening linearly. Also, I don't know what camera. There's something going crazy with the camera sometimes when we do that. I'm going to try that again. Basically, we're running into a performance limit. We're going to try to do some like large scale manipulation. You'll see how slow this is, which is why we multi-threaded it. And now I'm going to try to make a block volume. It'll get there. There we go. One more. Over one more, please. There we go. All right. And now updating this much tile map data is just slow. Part of it's my fault. Part of it's we fully update all the tile map data every time, regardless of whether it needs to change or not. We definitely would need something like that. It's arguable that we could do something for that specifically. Problem is, we'd still see that huge slowdown when we actually were updating all the tile map data. Which means that is just a performance limitation. So we're really slow because we're in linear mode right now. None of that's being threaded. Problem is we were having a lot of desynchronization between the different kinds of stuff we were drawing when we were multi-threading it. Because you ultimately can't control the end of that process, which is the actually, you know, replacing the tile map data. That's up to the scheduler. And I don't know, I thought deferred would help, but it doesn't because tile map layer seems to submit an automatic call to immediately update stuff if its tile map data changes, which is fair. I don't know. I think the defer should help, but I think the ultimate problem is that the data wasn't getting swapped out on the same frame anyway. So even if you were deferring it to the end of the frame, you weren't guaranteed to be substituting the data in at the same frame as the other data. So not much you could do with that. So what we're thinking about as an alternative is to pursue canvas item drawing directly. That seems like a reasonable choice. Updating all the tile map data does seem like a lot, especially when you're just moving the cursor around. Yeah, and we could reduce that, but then what happens when you actually do need to update all the tile map data? So that process at least needs to be acceptably fast. We don't need to be doing it all the time, but it at least needs to be fast enough. So yeah, we shouldn't be hitting that all the time. Part of the joy of Canvas Item is that it actually doesn't redraw every frame.
Your logic was impeccable, Captain.
So it's pretty performant when you're not changing it or not changing much of it, which is neat. Thanks, Sapphire. Yeah. So I don't know. We're kind of I admit we're heading out into the woods a little bit. We're heading out into the woods a little bit on this one. There's also some neat stuff. This also, to be fair, opens the door to some really neat Canvas Item shader stuff we could be doing as well, which is probably where we'll be doing our lighting and things like that. But that's down the line. So I think this is neat. I think this could be useful. I think this could be ultimately the right way to go, which is why we're going to attempt it. So Canvas Item is neat. It inherits node, which inherits object. It's inherited by control and node 2D, so we could just have node 2Ds up and we get all of this, right? We get all of this shiny. We probably get some extra stuff for node 2D, which is just like a node 2D has a position, a rotation, a scale, which you may or may not want. It's possible we might want to go directly with, I don't know. It depends on how we think about moving thing. It would be cheaper to move things gradually, which having it be a node 2D would certainly help with. We wouldn't be so limited of having like tile animation drawing stuff where we're like flickering from like one tile to another. We could do a lot of moving things around, which is neat. Is there like a vacuum going on in the background of this song? I don't like this, whatever this is. It's like moving in stereo. It's like that Cars song. They're just like drifting from my left ear to my right ear and back to my left ear. All right, all right. Here's the beloved Canvas Item, which we believe will be our savior. The Canvas Item is the abstract base class for everything in 2D space. Abstract base class for everything in 2D space is Canvas Items. Why is the first sentence of the description exactly the same as the header up here? It's a little silly. Canvas items are laid out in a tree. Children inherit and extend their parents transform. Canvas item is extended by control for GUI related nodes and by node 2D for 2D game objects. So our custom drawing will also work on controls then, which is neat. That is a neat idea. We could have some cool diegetic UI stuff that way. Diegetic. You can say diegetic at least once a day. You're a real game designer. Arneo, Node 2D is an old friend. You like him. Canvas item weirds you out a bit still, but you bet if you got to know him, you'd like him. Canvas item is literally like Node 2D's father. So, or mother. You don't have to gender it. Canvas item is mothering. Either way. All right, I will minimize the amount of butchering of Gen Z lingo. All right, so any canvas item can draw, which is neat. For this, queue redraw is called by the engine. Then notification draw will be received on idle time to request a redraw. Because of this, canvas items don't need to be redrawn on every frame, improving the performance significantly. Several functions for drawing on the canvas item are provided. See the draw functions. Oh, we will. We will. However, they can only be used inside draw. Its corresponding object.notification or methods connected to the draw signal. Canvas items are drawn in tree order on their canvas layer. By default, children are on top of their parents, so a root canvas item will be drawn behind everything. This behavior can be changed on a per item basis. So that's neat too. So we can take advantage of tree order to handle drawing. But there is also the canvas item Z index, which will also affect drawing priority. We'll have to play with that. Canvas item can be hidden, which will also hide its children. By adjusting various other properties of the canvas item, you can also modulate its color, via modulator self-modulate, change its Z-index, blend mode, and more. Note the properties like transform, modulation, and visibility are only propagated to direct canvas item child nodes. If there is a non-canvas item node in between, like node or animation player, the canvas item nodes below will have an independent position and modulate chain. See also top level. Yeah, I've run into this before, where you like try to get consistent Y sorting across the whole scene tree, but you have some like non-canvas item node mediating between things. Like you have just a node because you're like, who cares the position of this? It's just a container or something. That can be super annoying. Important canvas transforms, custom drawing. Some clip children stuff that we can do, which will be interesting. Light mask. So what we're really interested in is these draw stuff. I'm curious about things like draw animation. There's also an option where we don't really have to manually manage every single one of these canvas items. Like we might decide that characters just get their own node 2Ds. I don't know if we're going to decide that, but we might decide it. So we could do, this can be part of a mixed solution. We got Y sorting. Y sorting is going to be interesting. I don't actually know if we're going to want Y sorting. Depends on how many canvas items we use. I'm thinking of replacing a tile map layer combo with a canvas item rather than having a canvas item for everything we need to draw. That obviously is more granular and could be better for certain cases. Like, I agree, characters might be better served by being individual canvas items. But we'll see. We'll see. I think we're mostly going to be interested in the draw texture rect region, which lets us specify a region of the texture to draw, which means we'll have these nice big texture atlases that we can refer to. We'll need some kind of texture registration thing to support mods. We kind of like what we were trying to do with tileset atlas sources, but it'll probably be more procedural eventually. Default stuff we'll probably just hard code right now, just to not have to worry about every single thing that could go wrong. But yeah, I think we're gonna try to do some draw texture rect region stuff. The thing I'm most concerned about is drawing everything in local canvas item space. I don't know how local canvas item space looks, because it doesn't have to be pixel perfect. So that'll be interesting. That will be interesting. What does moved front do? Interesting. We could do some interesting stuff. I mean, we wouldn't necessarily want to move to front, but we could maybe move some of them around. Oh, is it better to move them in the tree order, or is it better to just fiddle with their Z indexes? And what does it mean for a canvas item that's lower in the tree that has a higher Z index? That'll be interesting to mess with. Get world 2D. Can we do some get local, get global stuff? Probably. Oh, we can get the global mouse position from here. That's neat. We can get our canvas. So yeah, I don't want to go so low that we're talking to the rendering server directly. I'm really hoping we can stay up here. Make input local. Oh, that's neat. The fact that you aren't sure whether it succeeded at converting the coordinates is a little less neat, but I love tile map layer. I think it's great. But I think we're forcing ourselves into a position where we do need something a little more specific. So we're gonna go for draw texture rect region. For characters, we might just do straight draw text direct. Although probably not. We'll probably still want regions with like sprite sheets for like animations and stuff. Rect is the position to draw the texture at. So this won't necessarily be pixel perfect all the time, which will be interesting. Interesting. It probably will be, because I don't think we're going to do anything too crazy with the transform. But we have to manage animations manually now. I mean, yes. Well, yes. For a piece of the environment, if we're going to draw the environment like this actually has some interesting consequences that we need to think about. Which is like, do I want to draw everything per block? Or if something is bigger than a block, do I want to draw that as one thing? There is an argument to be made for both. But for right now, we're going to just handle the single. So I don't know. I'm not sure yet. But yes, if it's a piece of the environment and it's animating, we would just we would just move the rect within the Atlas. Arneo, you still don't understand how canvas layers work? You have a bunch of trouble trying to make too many canvas layers for no reason early on. Yeah, I'm going to very carefully avoid making too many canvas layers. Because I don't think you very often need many canvas layers, but you definitely do sometimes, depending on what you're trying to do. But we're going to just do everything within a single layer at first. Because, yeah, navigating that is annoying. All right. So, you know what I should do is I should do a commit. Because I got this in the state that I want to. But you know what? And that would be our starting point commit for this. What I should do, am I going to? I don't know. Rhiannon Journey, you're not going to replace 600 tile map layers with 600 canvas layers. No, one canvas layer. If I had to guess, I would replace it with... my goal is to replace... So let's get an accurate count for what we're talking about here. So we're in a 64 by... We've got 64 Z levels. At the moment, each Z level has 3 tile map layers. So that's 192. At the moment, we support 1 opaque and 2 semi-transparent overlays. The number of semi-transparent overlays we support in the future could go up. So this is like a conservative number of what we're currently doing. So at the moment, we have 576 tile map layers. When we did our double buffering system, we had twice that. It's a shame the double buffering didn't work and caused a horrible native interop engine crash. So what I would like to do is replace 576 tile map layers with 64 canvas items. Because we can actually draw semi-transparent overlays on top of opaque like canvas item. The canvas, we can use one canvas item for all three of those things, right? Because we could draw the opaque first and then draw an overlay and then draw another overlay. We might not do it that way. We might do a blend or something. But we could. We could. It depends on... Well, we probably do want a canvas item for each layer, for each overlay. Because then we have more control about how we blend them. We're getting dangerously close to doing this with shaders. But I really don't want to. So we're going to avoid doing that for as long as possible. Let's focus on just getting our opaque materials first. One canvas item per layer of the ship. Essentially, that's what we're starting with. We might need one canvas item per overlay. So one for the opaque underlay and then another one for each overlay per Z level of the ship, but we'll see. Arneo, you agree you know nothing of shaders, but you already hate them for no reason. I know of shaders. When I was trying to do something similar to this in Unity with a custom render pipeline thing, a scriptable render pipeline, I was doing it all with, I was using compute shaders to determine what we were going to draw, and then I would be passing like buffers that I packed myself to the GPU. So we were doing the calculations in compute shaders. We're definitely not going to do that here because I don't think I need to. This isn't as complicated as what I was trying, or this isn't at the scale of what I was trying to do before. And I don't want to do the rendering with shaders right away. If anything, shaders are going to be our route to post-processing effects. We'll have to see what it's like to draw over a canvas item. We'll have to do some tests. Because if you draw over a canvas item with a semi-transparent texture, does it replace what's underneath? Does it blend it in by default? Like, we'll have to do some experimentation. But yeah, the goal is to cut it down at least by three times. Just because instead of needing a face X, face Y, and face Z tile map layer, we already only need one canvas item for the X, Y, and Z faces. They should all be able to coexist in one canvas item. Should. My biggest concern is around the interop calls between Godot and C#. We'll try it out probably just doing direct calls somewhere. But I would rather just prepare all of everything, send it over once without having to copy it, and then run it in GDScript. But that might be slow. It probably isn't that slow. I would rather use C# to determine what we want to draw and then use GDScript to like actually tell the engine what we're gonna draw. But that would require me to come up with like a format that I like, that I can pass back and forth using a primitive. Using like a fixed primitive array. And that's something we can probably do. We'll see. We will see. So I want to do this in a way that doesn't just absolutely break everything. So I'll probably leave tile drawing system like this, and we'll I might make a canvas item drawing system or something. Because I'd like this to continue working. All this depends on, the only thing this depends on, besides the tile set atlas index buffers, which we can keep using. I'm going to do my best to like have to build up this canvas item drawing thing in parallel so that the tile map drawing thing still works, so that we can compare it and we don't lose anything. So what we depend on at the moment is cutaway stuff. Cutaway, the block cutaway buffer, which we don't use for anything, I don't think, at the moment, but we have it. And we also need the block tags buffer. And honestly, that's kind of all we're dependent on. We handle everything else internally here. So this is why this stuff is nice. This is why this stuff can be nice. All right, we can get rid of these constants though. So let's make a new system for this. We'll just call it canvas item drawing system. That might not be accurate to what we're attempting to do, but you know. There's also a possibility that the work we did for with figuring out how to update the tile map data multi-threaded will actually really help here. The trick is that we need to tell it all to do it once. Like we can't do what we did before where we like split it into multiple threads. We would need to like do all the work here and then send it all over at once to Godot and then tell Godot that can become a group task, like a single group task. That's maybe doable. Otherwise, we can do some of the stuff we talked about yesterday where we do like a staggered update and we do it purposefully to give kind of an aesthetic to the update. To give kind of a neat aesthetic. Kind of the way like in Bastion, like the ground would appear as you walk towards it. Something like that. To like reduce the amount of stuff we're having to do at once. Canvas item. Drawing system. This is a little misleading because this is not going to be doing the canvas item drawing itself. I mean, maybe it will. Maybe that's how we'll start. I don't know. We'll have to decide. For testing purposes, it's probably worth trying to do it from here. Because it might just be an acceptable level of performance to just call into the engine and be like, please draw this. It probably isn't, though, because we have to pass a texture every time we do it. And so we're probably going to want to just be able to reference the texture. We'll probably want some kind of registry or caching thing that we can handle that can help us. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see how we do this. Hard to know ahead of time what we're going to do here. Public sealed class. Yeah, you can be a sealed class. I should really come up with some kind of like I system thing. IEC system or something like that. Instead of just having these all be totally separate. Rhiannon, last weekend you found renewed interest in continuing down the 2D route for your game. You woke up today ready to switch it all over. You think you're just procrastinating, but who could possibly know? It's tough. It's tough. The 2D, 3D divide is tough. I would say if you're trying to do something that's 3D-like and you want to do it quickly, I would say it's probably best to do it just in 3D now. Even if you want kind of a 2D aesthetic, I think you can achieve it. Like, I think my need to do this in 2D is like, I think I'm way out of pocket on this. So I don't need a tile layer count. But I do need a block Z level count. Why are you private? I guess. Here, let's do this once. All right, so if we're going to go down the same path, I kind of want to do some like side by side here. Yeah, do a little side by side stuff. So before we dig into this, just to be clear, what we're trying to do, we currently have a bunch of tile map layer drawing. We're able to build a pretty reasonable space with this. Right now, it's running without any kind of threading because we were running into some issues with that. And what we want to do, though, we want this to be a lot faster. That was weird. I must have let go of the control key before I let go of the right. There we go. So this is too slow. Too slow by far. And when we multi-thread it, it becomes inconsistent. So we're thinking about just doing our own drawing to a canvas item for each Z level. There's some consequences I need to think through, which is like, what happens if you want to draw a character that is higher than one Z level? Can be tricky. We could get around that by splitting up the draw calls. Like, we could force things to be on particular Z levels, and that honestly might be kind of the choice, but it also might not. It also might not. It also might not matter. It also might not matter. We might be able to do enough with the Z. Might be able to do it in such a way that you can just draw a multi-block character at the Z level that their feet are at, and then higher levels will just naturally occlude it. We'll have to see. We'll also have to, like... I feel like there will be some amount of Y sorting with the canvas items to do something similar. Because, yeah, look at this. This is bad. It didn't even go through. The editor is working great, though. I mean, not the editor, but the raycast stuff. Super good. Surely renewed interest is not procrastinating. Might be delirium, though. Depends where the interest is coming from. True, true. Yeah, if it's just an interest in doing something, that can definitely be true. So what we were going to need... We will need some kind of tile set format thing. I think we might even still just need the tile set format buffers. Because right now with the tileset format buffers, it tells you a way of getting to the correct tile, in a sheet. However, we might need more information in the format. Because what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be directly calling into... We're going to need to be directly setting the size of the thing. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. The other question is, do we draw each face or do we try to draw blocks? I think the answer is we draw each face, and I think we know why. It'll be more draw calls, but not draw calls to the GPU. It will be more CPU drop calls. So this process that we're exploring here is like, it feels CPU bound. It feels CPU bound. And I hope that's okay, because rendering is honestly one of the few things that needs to happen in an incredibly high frequency. Almost everything else that's gameplay logic can operate at a very reduced frequency. Like things like decisions the AI makes, or like even just results of flood filling. Like you could take like a second for that and people wouldn't really notice. Like you could have a pretty low quote unquote effective tick rate depending on how long it takes to run the whole process. The rendering needs to be like chop chop, hop hop hop. All right, take it easy, Mr. Magoo. I know it's late. I know this is a late stream. Have a good Saturday night. Items removed. What is Google Drive talking to me about? I was able to get the channel redeems working again, so go to town. I haven't been able to get my chatbot to work though. So it's me now. I'm the chatbot. That's probably better from like a user trust standpoint. Like when I'm sharing a link for a Discord server, it's probably better if it comes from my account, from some random bot account. All right, so if we look through the process that's involved here, we get the block hull types. So getting the block hull types, we could actually even close this for now. Because we kind of need to evaluate the structure of the tile drawing system to figure out how we want to recreate that as a canvas item drawing system. So getting the block hull types is the initial step of this journey, right? This is how we start. We go through each tier. Quote, quote. Hey, Nix, how's it going? How are you not asleep yet? You could have went to sleep. Your streak would have been saved. I know. That's why I was like, at the top of the stream, I was like, hi, Nix's stream seek saver. Because everyone, all the regulars hopped in immediately, and I was like, well, at least we know Nix is here in spirit. Hey, Darren Ash, what are we working on today? We're working on an alternative idea for how to draw our tile stuff. Because we tried a bunch of different stuff this week. We're running into performance issues. Here's like an unthreaded linear like performance of like making large scale block modifications. And it is slow. It is so slow. It's like crazy how slow it is. We did a multi-threaded thing that did not work out in terms of consistency. I think it was quite good in terms of performance, but it did not work out. I'm not going to show it very much because it creates a kind of strobing light effect, which I don't want to subject people to. But yeah, we're thinking about another process where we use direct canvas item draws to draw this stuff. Oh my lord. Yeah, the performance is bad. The multi-threading thing in the abstract worked really well though. I am excited about our options for doing that. I love that I can just override the raycast thing by just holding control down. That's really neat. Seems tough. It's kind of, we're kind of going out on a limb where we're trying to rethink something. We're going to explore an alternative path. How's it going for you today, this weekend? All right, ads are coming. Hold on to your ads, people. Sapphire, you feel like you're really close to your special circuit network and Factorio working? You remember feeling that way before you end up starting it from scratch? That is it. That is the feeling, isn't it? Finishing a system like that. You guys need to, like, say Coca-Cola. You guys need to be very specific about what you're talking about. All right, so what we do initially is we get our block haul types from our block tags buffer. So the goal is to re-implement this without changing the representation, the underlying representation of the data. This is just, we're just swapping in a different module for rendering, and we are going to see if that module is better. That's one of the joys of this kind of ECS approach, this kind of data-driven approach. All we really care about is, like, what's the structure of the data coming in, what's the structure of the data coming out, and what are the transforms we need to make to get the data from one form into the other, right? So we're going to start, we're going to take on the current input data as an assumption. We might change some things like the tile format stuff, which I guess we wouldn't call tile set format anymore. We would call it something else. I don't know what though. To be fair, they were once not far from being the same thing. That is true, Sapphire. What is causing the bottlenecking? It's the cost of substituting in the tile map data of the tile map layer. And so we were able to speed that up massively by just doing it multi-threaded. But the problem is we couldn't get it all. We couldn't guarantee when all of that stuff was finished. And it would finish on different frames, and it would create this crazy, like, almost strobe-like effect. Well, that was when we were doing double buffering. But without double buffering, it basically means the opaque... Since we were doing the opaque stuff and the semi-transparent stuff as separate passes, there was no way to guarantee that the opaque and the semi-transparent stuff updated on the same frame, which creates, like, a crazy effect. So we're going to try a different approach. We're going to try to do like a canvas item approach, which is neat because we can actually do something similar to our cutaway system. Like we can do a kind of occlusion, maybe. We can do a kind of occlusion culling, which could be neat. The cutaway is going to be for like when we purposely want to hide a block. The occlusion culling is going to be for like when a face can't be seen, which will be interesting. Because otherwise we're going to have a massive overdraw. And so I think the bottleneck is going to remain calls to the canvas item. So I think it's worth doing a kind of occlusion culling. Hey, I didn't say hi to the bot. Your bot didn't post in chat. I probably could have seen it in the... I probably could see it in the viewers list, though. I don't look, though. I don't really keep StreamerBot open. There's, like, too many windows. Oh, I did say hi. Oh, yeah, no, I did see... It would be funny if it posted something in chat. Like, believe it or not, Nyx isn't at home. Please leave a message at the beep. You'd have to change it. You'd have to be like, believe it or not, Nyx isn't awake. That'd be pretty good for you. That would be pretty good. That'd be funny. You're not sure about breaking TOS at that point. I'm going to be super honest, and I'm not going to condone nor condemn what you're currently doing. I don't know how that works. So yeah, let's not worry about that. All right, so what we're gonna want to do, so the block type thing, I've been trying to like get to this block types thing for like a while and not succeeding. So what we're gonna do, so the block type thing is pretty straightforward. That's just determining what kind of hull we're talking about. That's a very silly step here. It's really not part of the drawing system per se, but you know, we're storing it per tile. So I feel like anything that's gonna get stored on a per tile basis kind of matters. I think we will continue. I think we will continue to store things per tile and make the distinction using this vector 4 of the block face as a W component, because they are going to co-occupy blocks. And if anything, it's really nice to be able to split this up. I actually might want to have it divided by even more than just block faces. Anything that can coexist in a block with something else should probably have some kind of enum value associated with it, just so we can store it all. That would be funny, Nyx. And Sapphire. So this is easy. Whatever. So I guess the question is, are we going to still store the hulls this way? Which is really just... It's almost just a record of there is a material here. There is like a face that we might need to draw. And then there is a bunch of disqualifying factors that we handle later. So that's another thing we want to be the same. We want the auto-tiler logic to be the same. We don't want to mess with that. So once we get all our hull types sorted out, what we do is we set our tile map layer data for a given node. So we say like game.child.like editor blocks. Here's all the editor blocks. Here's all the editor inputs. We might change child to like canvas item or something. I don't know. It depends on how we order. Actually, child is pretty good. And then we could have another child that holds all that. And we could say like game.child.canvas items. And then we could pick one from there. But we have to do this kind of indirect referencing unless we want to just constantly go back and forth with the API, which I do not want to do. But it might be worth trying just to see, because we haven't been measuring a lot of the performance of that. It's kind of just been a bogeyman that's kind of affected my decision making, but we haven't actually measured the performance. of constantly calling the Godot API in C#. I'm just concerned about doing it, especially if we have to pass a texture over. That doesn't seem like a good thing to do. So if anything, what we're going to do is we're going to send over a bunch of calls, either divided by canvas item or divided by a texture. It probably makes sense to do it by canvas item, as I think about it and stare off into the distance. Hey, Sapphire, you teleported over to say hi to anyone in YouTube chat. Appreciate that, Sapphire. YouTube's a little quiet today, but you know, it's Saturday. I'm still kind of trying to learn the you know, the way the YouTube impressions are working. It's pretty inconsistent. We had a peak yesterday of 85 people on the YouTube side alone, which is awesome. So I appreciate anyone that's come back today, hang out with us. Although this is a new channel that you've just discovered today, thank you for giving us a chance. And thank you, YouTube, for showing this to people. May the algorithm bless us all. So as we get down into the set tile map layer data, we get our buffer comp, we get our target node, we got our mask. Grab our block tags. I don't love this, that I have to grab the format comp component. Probably a better way to do that. Probably want to get the component associated with the actual thing. That's going to be interesting. So we'll definitely have to organize things by... We'll have to have something to do with the tile, with the... I'm going to need to come up with a new way of talking about this stuff. We're not going to have tile set atlas sources anymore. We'll just have, like, tile atlases. Hey, XCXSDW_. Thank you for the follow. Appreciate that. Hope you're having a fine Saturday here. And then what we're currently doing, so here's where it's going to get kind of interesting. We call a separate block face thing. We set up a tile. We know the tile. I think it is good to have, we're going to need to associate certain regions with certain tile faces, I think. If we keep a consistent thing going here. Oop. Not exactly what I wanted to do. This part I don't want to mess with at all, really, but I kind of do. Because we're not going to be setting source IDs and atlas coords anymore. I guess we kind of are. So we'll still need some kind of format that maps the autotiler onto the atlases, because the autotiler works on a 4-dimensional mapping. But the atlas core, but the actual, obviously the textures work on a 2-dimensional mapping. So we either need an explicit mapping or we need like a convention. And I like having it be explicit, because that would be better for long-term mod support, or like, you know, if I change my mind about how I want to store stuff. A convention isn't bad. It would reduce the like one kind of indirect lookup. But honestly, I don't know if I care enough. Atlas buffer equals new buffer read only format comp. Am I making this buffer every time I look at a tile? No way. That's crazy. Huh. Interesting that that's not a performance issue. That's cool. It is really cheap to make a buffer. It's just a span. It's like a ref struct span. Well, it's like a ref struct with some things along with a span. Or in this case, a read-only span. So it's like very cheap to get, so, you know, whatever. All you got to do is pass in a component or a buffer ID. And we just get it. So what is going to change is we're not going to be storing stuff in this same tile format. Like there's going to be no such thing as an alternative tile. There's going to be no such thing as a source ID unless that becomes the Atlas ID. So this part is going to change quite a bit. We're not going to be thinking of things in terms of tiles anymore, really. Probably think of it in terms of faces. Or something like that. What do I want to call that? Like params for something? Like a draw params. So when we call this draw texture rect region, so instead of worrying about tile data, what we care about when we do a call is we care about a reference to a texture, so texture 2D, which is probably going to be something that we've registered somewhere, and we'll probably use some kind of reference of it. Maximum texture size is 16384 by 16384 due to graphics hardware limitations. This is pretty big. I don't think we're going to need that much. It'll be interesting to see if it's worth it to try to put as much as you can onto like as few atlases as possible, but we're built around this whole very moddable architecture, so I actually don't want to do anything too crazy. Like we're definitely gonna always have a bunch of different atlases. So we need a reference to a texture ultimately. We need a rect2, which is the position. I don't love rect2s. Rect2s are also variants, so for us that's going to be a vector2. It's going to be a vector2. Oh no, it's going to be a vector4. So a rect2 is a vector4 because it's the position and the size. Position is its lower left origin. And so it's, if you take its position and add its size, you get its upper right. Well, is that right? Because in 2D, Y is down. So I guess it's maybe the opposite. Maybe it's the upper left is the position, and then the lower right is what you get by adding its size. I guess it doesn't really matter. It's going to be interpreted by wherever we put it. But in this context, in the context of the canvas item, I think that's what it's going to be. It's going to be distance from the upper left. And then the source rect is going to be where within the texture we are referring to. Like it's a region. It's a way to define a region. We'll have a modulate, which is neat. That's how we're going to do our semi-transparent. So, you know, because of this modulate, we probably can draw the overlays on top of the underlying opaque stuff, in which case we only need one canvas item per Z level, which would be awesome. Because we would go to 64 canvas items instead of, you know, 192 for opacity and then an additional 192 for every overlay, which at the moment leads to about 600 because we only have 2 overlays, but we're going to have more. Think about it. We'll probably have like an oxygen overlay. Right now we have input and select, which are slightly different. One is like a canvas stand-in, or not canvas, a cursor stand-in, and the other is like the actual pre-existing selection. Or not pre-existing, current selection. It's like what you have done versus what you are doing. And then you can imagine more. You can imagine oxygen. You can imagine maybe like a kind of fire. Or even maybe instead of oxygen, it's the absence of oxygen, right? Like FTL style, like that kind of reddish, like you can't breathe here. It's going to be interesting. What's the difference between Rec 2 and Rec 2I? Yeah, it's integer versus float. That's another thing about Canvas. It's taking these Rec 2s because a Canvas item could be offset, right? Like you could have stuff being drawn in between pixels, right? If you're not careful. So we'll need a few things. We'll need to be sending over a few things. We'll need a vector 4 for the Rec 2. That's like the position in local space. We'll need a vector 4. That's the region of the texture. We'll need another vector 4, which is the color for the modulate. And then there is transpose and clip UV, which I think are optional. Oh, the modulate's optional too. So I guess we don't always have to send that over. Nix, of course you use Hungarian notation. I mean, why not? You're thinking what it could be. Programming use Hungarian, which I would be integer. And then you're like, wow, yeah, it is integer. Yeah. Yeah. I don't like the Rec 2I style. I don't like position plus size, but you know, it's kind of all right. I also don't like center plus extents because it implies that the thing is centered. I kind of like min and max. But obviously min and max has a distinct problem of min can be greater than max if you're not careful. Whereas position and size, I mean, I guess you could pass a negative size, which would be weird. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't implemented a similar thing. We have our AABB, which uses minimum and max rather than position and size, which is the same. Position and size is like center and extent, but not quite. Not quite. It's like origin and extent, where the origin is not in the center, but in some corner. Well, Rec 2 itself is axis aligned, combined with transform 2D to represent a rotated or skewed angle. It's interesting. Negative values for size are not supported. Yeah, that's what I would think. Oh, I don't like the Boolean context for Rec 2 either. That's fine. We don't care. We don't care about Rec 2. We're not going to worry about it. What we care about is this draw text direct region thing. So what I care about, what I want to read about is a little bit about viewport and canvas transformations. I know that's like the most boring thing we could be talking about on stream, but I think it's important and I think it's deeply confusing. Next, you think it's a good notation? You describe the type in the variable, like be busy being bool. Yeah, I think it doesn't matter nowadays in most cases, unless for some reason you refuse to like statically type your variables and you want to communicate that this thing should only be this kind of type. I think if you can't just get the type definition easily in your IDE, because for whatever reason it's like this dynamically typed nonsense, I think that helps because it tells people like what they're obligated to do. You're like, this should never become a float or something like that. This needs to remain whatever. I think it's fine. Arnio, you've stared at this document page so much you've started to hate it. Yeah, I've looked at it occasionally. Pretty much just in terms of these tables. There's another one that has an even more complicated version of this table, I feel like. I don't remember where it is. Yeah. So it's an overview of the 2D transforms. It's about drawing their content locally from the moment. Okay, so this is an overview of the 2D transforms going on for nodes from the moment they draw their content locally to the time they're drawn on the screen. Overview discusses very low level details of the engine. Goal of the tutorial is to teach a way for feeding input events to the input with position in the correct coordinate system. For a more extensive description of all coordinate systems and 2D transforms is available on the 2D coordinate system and 2D transforms page. Yeah, this is the one I've usually looked at, which just makes me cry. Sorry for the flashbang. But this should be shocking. This is hard to wrap your head around. I don't totally understand this, to be honest. Because the thing that I'm confused about is canvas transforms, canvas coordinates. Usually they're quite annoying for me. Canvas coordinates are crazy. As mentioned in the previous tutorial, there are 2 types of canvases with previous tutorial. Is this where we were before? No, it's not. This is yet another page. Where is this? Viewports and canvas items. Oh, that leads to this. Okay. We're going to just do some reading today. I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of vague about handling canvas item, and I kind of want to think about it a little more. Your joke was not bad, Nix. That's perfect. You could explain to me while you read it. You would love that. I could read to you what's on the page. Yeah, because what we're looking at doing is doing all of our drawing with canvas item. And that's important to know. It's important to understand the relationship between that and the viewport. Especially if you're trying to do some shenanigans. Like camera 2D. Like our system is going to interact with camera 2D in probably interesting ways. I think it'll be fine because our canvas, we're not going to draw straight to a canvas item. I think we will attach the canvas items to node 2D because for one thing, we actually want an offset as we handle lower, or actually it's more like higher. As we handle higher Z levels, we actually want an offset in the local coordinates of those Z levels because of that, because of the perspective, because of our orthographic perspective. Like, we want to be able to draw something that's a higher Z level at the same horizontal set of coordinates. And by horizontal, I mean the diamond down isometric coordinates we use. So X, Y. So we need to offset the X, Y as we travel up the Z. From how it looks in the, how it looks from... The way I've been doing that is by offsetting the actual nodes. Currently for the tile map layers, but I want to do the same thing for canvas items, and it should work because the canvas items are going to be part of a node 2D, and the node 2D should have plenty of that. I curiously don't understand how the local coordinates of a canvas item that doesn't have any 2D position associated with it is probably just, 0, 0. It's probably just locked to the world origin. But probably not. It's actually probably locked to something more complicated, like the viewport's origin. Which is why it helps to look at some of this stuff sometimes. But I know this is kind of a boring thing to be looking at and talking about, so appreciate everyone hanging out today. It's a lazy day. It's a lazy Saturday. If anyone wants to share what they're getting up to, I'd love to hear about it. Whether it's work, or like Arneo said, like, I think it was Arneo, like self-care, like cleaning, whatever. What do you do? If you're at work on Saturday today and you're watching, I feel for you. My past self in the service industry feels for you. That's one thing I need to make a lot more time for this year is stuff on the weekends. Like exercise would be nice. Exercise would be great for me right now. My body's kind of falling apart. 4 years of work from home will do that to you. After what was previously a pretty active work life. Arnio, you're so lazy. You just realized your potatoes have been in the cold oven for 15 minutes now. Oh no. You can report you have now successfully turned the heat of the oven on. Excellent. Sapphire, you're trying desperately to get your Factorio circuit to work while I'm on the second monitor. Yeah, I've never used logistics network in Factorio. I've only used like really dumb systems. I would be hesitant. I think I would use the logistics network if I like really went all in on robots, which I've never done before. Actually, I don't know if you'd need the logistic network if you were all in on robots anyway. I don't know. I'm such a dummy. I like Factorio, and I think I have like 400 or 500 hours in Factorio, but I feel like I've barely scratched the surface of that game. Hey, Zhao. How's it going? Let me know if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Happy Saturday. Sapphire, you're combining both logistics network, which is the robots, with circuit, which is basically the logistics circuit stuff. Yeah, that sounds rough. I like to have a very dumb, very train-based system. I like to have everything be super widely diffused and involve like huge numbers of resources. That's what's fun to me. I'm not a very like high, I don't do a lot of optimization within that. Like for me, I'm like, if room, if there's room, keep sending the thing. If there's no room, stop sending the thing. I don't do a lot of like, you know what I should do is logistics networks for power distribution. That would be helpful for me. But that also doesn't really matter because it's like, if power, use power. If no power, still use power. Your base is train based. Do you have a grid of blocks of rails? Oh dang. All right, let's. Is it obvious I'm like avoiding getting started on this? Is it obvious that I'm concerned about this, about doing this? But we're gonna do our best. We're barely halfway through the stream, so we still got a while left. You just posted a picture of the map of your Factorio base and off topic? Hell yeah, I would love to see that. Nix, your internet's on the fritz again. Oh, pun intended, I guess. Your German internet, it's on the fritz. All right. Let's look at this. So I already know about the fact that node and control both inherit from canvas item. Canvas item is an abstract class, so I don't think I can just use it, which I don't really want to, because I do want to take advantage of things like node 2D's positioning and stuff like that. I do want to do that. We can also arrange canvas items in trees, also what we're going to do. And that will just be a draw order thing. So it's going to be super important to respect that, probably. Because I don't totally understand how the tree positioning of the canvas item will interact with the Z indexing, but we will see. We will see. I guess that's fine. I guess that's not a problem. Hey, smooth in a second. Goes to Discord off topic. Yeah, that's where you want to be. Squares. Yeah, smooth in a second is something of a Factorio train conductor themselves. Spaghetti master. Yeah, exactly. All right. So canvas item nodes and nodes inheriting from them are direct or indirect children of a viewport. So I know that there's a viewport way at the base, like way at the root. Viewport's property, viewport.canvas transform, allows to apply a custom transform, to the canvas item hierarchy it contains. So we could do it to a whole viewport. Nodes such as camera 2D work by changing that transform. So yeah, so that's neat. That's how we're able to move the viewer around with the camera, is by manipulating the viewport canvas transform. To achieve effects like scrolling, manipulating the canvas transform property is more efficient than moving the root canvas item in the entire screen with it. Neat. Usually, though, we don't want everything in the game or app to be subject to the canvas transform. For example, parallax backgrounds. Yeah. UI is like locked to the camera, so it makes sense that UI exists kind of in its own screen position stuff. Same with maybe some transitions or like vignettes or whatever. I guess that's kind of like UI. So we solved this problem in a single scene tree with canvas layers. Look at that. We're learning about canvas layers. Arneo, that phrase about how camera 2Ds work by changing the custom transform 2D of a viewport. It just changes where the viewport's being drawn, you know? Zal, you went to have Hot Pot alone last weekend and you loved it? Oh yeah, you mentioned that before. Hot Pot is great. I only go once or twice a year. It's like a special occasion place. We have one that I really like. We have like 8, but there's one that we really like, me and my partner. And we usually go for some special occasion. Maybe that'll be a nice Valentine's Day spot. But yeah, I love it. They also have an upstairs lounge where they've showed Studio Ghibli movies, which is amazing. They don't serve the hot pot up there, which is like the big problem. But I would love to just watch Studio Ghibli and eat hot pot. It's so soothing, and you feel so full at the time, but you can just eat so much of it. It's so good. I love hot pot. All right, so canvas layer. It's a node that adds a separate 2D rendering layer for all of its children and grandchildren. Viewport children will draw by default at layer 0, right? While a canvas layer will draw at any numeric layer. Layers with a greater value will be drawn above those with a smaller number. Canvas layers also have their own transform and do not depend on the transform of other layers. Do not depend on the transform of other layers. That's neat. So they're each considered like top level, I guess. This allows the UI to be fixed in screen space. So yeah, so there is some kind of UI canvas layer that's automatically being created for us. I feel like it's just implied. An example of this is creating a parallax background. It can be done with a canvas layer at -1. So this is neat. This is neat. So we could do this. So we will use canvas layers to an extent to handle this. There's a world where we tell the UI to draw very similarly to how we tell the items, the other things like blocks and characters and stuff to draw. And we just plug it into the control nodes, to whichever control node possible. It's possible we go that route, just because I hate control nodes. I don't think that would mitigate the part of the control nodes that I don't like, but it'd be neat. So here's like the diagram. So we got our scene tree, we got our viewport, which is at the root. We got our scene, which is the root node of the scene. We got our level, which is all the node 2Ds. And then so I guess the engine just makes a UI canvas layer. That's not super clear to me. If control nodes are just added to a separate canvas layer. I think that's just kind of happening. Canvas layers aren't necessary to control the drawing order of nodes. The standard way to ensure that a node is correctly drawn in front or behind others is to manipulate the order of the nodes in the scene panel. So weird to call that panel and not tree. Perhaps counterintuitively, the topmost nodes in the scene panel are drawn behind the lower ones. Yeah, that's great. 2D nodes also have the canvas item.z index property for controlling theirs as a drawing order. So that must override There must be some kind of thing happening where it's comparing the draw order to the Z index. And yeah, I guess that works because everything is on Z index 0 by default, in which case it reverts to whatever the scene tree order is. It's so weird they call it scene panel. Whatever the scene tree order is. All right, so this takes us to viewport and canvas transformations. It's an overview of the 2D transforms going on for nodes from the moment they draw their content locally to the time they are drawn onto the screen. Okay, we already read some of this. And then the really involved version of it is here, right? Yeah. I don't think we need to dig into this particularly much. Yeah, I think this is something we'll refer to when we have questions about how windows and sub-viewports and whatever and layers and stuff interact with each other. So world coordinates are viewport specific. So a different canvas layer technically has its own world coordinate system. Which is fascinating. That's kind of shown here, yeah, at the canvas layer. I don't totally understand the axes of this. But this table would be worth understanding better. Feel like you're in an ad for a soap with this song. It's an interesting song. It's a little loud too. Oceans. The title of the song is Oceans. And on the album cover is just the word touch. So yeah, it does sound like I am getting ads from this. Very inoffensive ads. I gotta keep drinking water. Don't let me slip on drinking water today. Thought about adding an audio effect for hydrate. I'm like thinking about it. I don't know if it would be a little too on the nose, but I would love to do the Sapphire with the skip music track. Thanks, Sapphire. Ain't No Rest for the Stars. Oh, this sounds like it's gonna be good. It's by Harris Heller. We love Harris Heller. Yeah, we like this one. We like almost anything by Harris Heller. Oh yeah, but I was thinking about adding an audio clip for Hydrate. But the one that I want to add is the line of from General Ripper from Dr. Strangelove, where he's like, "You ever see a commie drink a glass of water?" I just want an audio clip of that. Feel like that might be a little too much, but that's what I would want. We could find some glug glug sounds, but I don't think that would be appealing to me. We could also have someone being like water. Like we'd probably find a good like parched someone saying water in a fun way. But yeah, I just love the General Ripper is very funny to me. Very timely character. All right, so we're looking, if it isn't obvious, again, we're avoiding doing the actual work on this system. Our current excuse is reading the documentation. This is mostly about understanding how inputs relate to coordinate systems? And that's actually a good question. That's actually a good question. You don't think the glug glug effect would be appropriate? No, me either. But I think the you ever see a commie drink a glass of water? I think that line is pretty good. I haven't added it, but I'm thinking about it. I'm seriously thinking about it. Might be a little too much though. But God, I love Doctor Strangelove. It's such a good film. I mean, Peter Sellers has 3 different characters in that movie. Maybe 4, but I think 3. And George C. Scott is incredible in that film too. Kubrick kind of tricked George C. Scott in that movie. He'd always get him to do, he'd tell him to do one last take that was like kind of over the top. And that was always the take that he used. It's so funny. Yeah, nice and cozy. Nice and cozy. Don't read the news. The news is usually bad. Read the news for maybe 5 minutes in the morning and then stop. and then stop. All right, so I don't think we care. So as mentioned in the previous tutorial, canvas layers, every canvas item node. Remember that Node 2D and control both. It's so weird that Node 2D and control-based nodes both use canvas item as their common root, because Node 2D and control have totally different concepts of their transform position stuff, and they're like not totally compatible with each other. But it makes sense because that's the point, because canvas item doesn't really have a concept of transform position. It does a little bit in the ways that we're describing, as far as like there is a transform to canvas items and there is a way to transform canvas item drawing, but it's weird. I don't totally understand. And then canvas layer itself also has a transform mechanic to it. Yeah, every canvas layer has a transform. Can be accessed as a transform 2D. I don't think we're going to do much with that. We might do some repositioning stuff for camera rotation, because remember we were tackling 90-degree camera rotation, and we were having some issues with that. Doing that easily with tile maps. I think that's going to be easier to do with canvas items. I think it'll be easier to keep track of the transform of the camera rotation. We'll still need to redraw everything on the canvas item. But I think in understanding the offset that the camera rotation creates as we orbit around wherever the pivot point is, I think that'll be neat. And I think that'll work pretty well. Oh my God, did you clip me? Swing in a second out here. Out here earning his Clips Leader 3 badge. Water sound effects. Oh my God. Smooth in a second. Smooth in a second has also been recording us sound effects that I have so far resisted adding to the channel. But we might do it. We'll see. There's a popular mandate for it. Everything's fine where you are. You follow the overseas stuff too much. Yeah. Not a dime novel. Add them, you coward. All right. Happy Saturday. I am interested in how viewport stretching to handle multiple resolutions is going to be fine. It's going to be handled, but I don't think we really care because everything is done at a viewport scale. I don't think there will be a problem. To convert input event coordinates to local canvas item coordinates, the canvas item.makeInputLocal function was added for convenience. And that is because input events are multiplied by a stretch transform. but lack the ones above, which is like this global transform. It's fascinating. Which makes me very hesitant to do any viewport level transform stuff. I guess that makes sense. That's kind of why I'm hoping that we can continue taking advantage of what we will probably be doing is taking advantage of one tile map layer, which will be the input mapping layer, which will get us local coordinates and mapped coordinates. And we will probably use that those local coordinates as the basis for how we draw these texture regions. That sounds right. That sounds right. I do need some more window stuff. We need to fix things like taking windows input or taking input from outside of the windows. So yeah, what we're gonna do is we are gonna stagger the canvas items to help us handle the offset as we go up in layers. As we go up from the bottom layer to the top layer in terms of Z layers of our ship. But otherwise, I think we're gonna be pretty careful not to go too crazy with this stuff. But yeah, I think this could help us with a lot of rotation things. Maybe not. Maybe it'll just make things worse, but it could help us. Do you play Magic the Gathering? Not really. I know how. I've played a little bit in the past, but I would not consider myself a MTG player. You play a lot of MTGs though? Yeah, this is very much feeling like a preparation kind of stream. There's a lot of thinking that we need to do before we are able to handle our drawing via this very different process. Which is, again, we're gonna start manually drawing. We're gonna start calling draw directly on the canvas item for a given Z level instead of doing this tile map layer thing that we've been doing. And we're going to see. This is exploratory. We're going to see. This is exploration, right? Like we found a local maximum, right? Like we found a local maximum level of performance for doing this stuff with tile map layer. It has problems, but it is pretty performant. But now we need to do the process of descending back into the valley, right? To see if we can find an even higher local maximum. So we're kind of in an exploratory phase here for a bit. Hopefully for not too long. I want to have a strong grasp of this by like the end of next week, and I don't think that's unreasonable. We're gonna do our best. But today is kind of the first day we're kind of digging into this idea. So you're learning it now. You're learning FTG. You like Hearthstone. I also like Hearthstone. Was fun. I haven't played it in many years, but I played it when it came out for a year or two. I thought it was cool. I thought it did a lot of things right. Obviously, it did a lot of things right. Card games are kind of cool. Digital card games. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do with digital card games now. Whether you're talking about Slay the Spire or MTG or Hearthstone or whatever. There's definitely deck builder is definitely like one of the perennial genres now, right? I'm not going to think too much about this transform order. It's the kind of world that Arneo is getting into or is annoyed by, and I'm annoyed by it too, but I'm just going to not think about it very clearly. One thing to keep in mind is going to be handling input, because we mentioned somewhere here, it mentioned, yeah, how input events are multiplied by some but not all of these transforms. And so you need to like make input local. And we're going to try to get around that for now by continuing to use a tile map layer as our underlying what tile are you clicked on? What tile are you, over? We're going to try that. And that'll be okay. That'll just need to be a thing. We'll need to do some local to map and map to local stuff. It might be worth it to have a tile map layer for each Z level, honestly. Or not. It's actually really easy to do the offset, I guess. And so we'll need to think about that. We'll need to think about the fact that like the X face will be to the left of that center tile local position, and like the Y face is on the right, and like the Z face is above. Arnia, you play NTG? You're always available to sell someone on terrible deck idea. Nice. Zao, you're running a super cheap commander deck on Arena with only 3 cards. It has an 80% win rate. That sounds gross. That sounds incredibly degenerate. That is always the best, like, Slay the Spire run, though, is when you get down to, like, 6 cards that you just cycle through infinitely until your enemy is dead, and you just do that over and over again. All right, we'll keep this in mind, how to, like, feed in inputs correctly. This is going to be important to keep in mind. Get viewport, get screen transform, times get global transform with canvas, times local position. Crazy. So that gets the world position from a local position within a control node. That is so crazy. But we can use that. So here we go. Some transform functions. The above graphic shows some available transform functions. Yeah, and it kind of shows you what you end up getting. Like the difference between get global transform and get global transform with canvas. And by canvas, they mean canvas layer, it looks like. So it looks like we're going to continue not being able to use the word layer without causing deep confusion. So that's fun. Set is going to be the next MTG set of Ninja Turtles. That's funny. I mean, Cowabunga. Turtles in Time is one of the OG greats. Yeah. I haven't consumed any modern Ninja Turtles material, so I don't know what it's like. But you know, I remember the OG stuff. God, I don't know how to use... I'm so bad at transforms. This is when my lack of a mathematical background really hurts me, is anytime we're talking about transforms or matrices or whatever. So if we call from a canvas item, we get a canvas position. So we get the global transform from a local position. If we want to get the local position, we get the global transform dot affine inverse of the canvas position. And if we want to convert a canvas item local coordinate to screen coordinates, we just multiply in the following order. Yeah, this is gross. Screen coord is get viewport dot get screen transform times get global transform with canvas times local position. Keep in mind, however, that it is generally not desired to work with screen coordinates. The recommended approach is to simply work in canvas coordinates. Canvas.getGlobalTransform to allow automatic screen resolution resizing to work properly. I concur. All right, so I think I have an idea about how this is going to work. I think it's easier for us if we continue to mediate some of this with tile map layers, but maybe not. Maybe not. Take it easy, Sapphire. See you next week. Have a good weekend. All right. So is it time? Is it time to like start messing around with what we're going to do here? Should probably start trying something. We still got another hour left in the stream. You want to live in Cyberpunk 2077? Hanging out with Jackie? Scamming corpo scumbags? Getting crazy Neuralink viruses? You'll be a corpo scumbag? Yeah, I probably would be too. I like comfort too much. I have a hard time choosing principle over comfort, which I admit is a personal failing. I'm trying to be better about. Same, yeah, word. But that makes me part of the problem. Nix, you'd be a corpo too, being able to do stuff just by hacking into some ports and like being even lazier now than now. That's a way to think about it. All right, we're heading back into ads. Hold on to your ads, Twitch. I love this song. The Samurai's Call. It's a good song. It makes me think of Samurai Gourmet or whatever it was called. It's fun stuff. I haven't even gotten started and I'm ready to be retired. You know what I'm saying? All right, so things that need to change. So knowing the hull face is super crucial. Knowing the hull material is super crucial. So what do we need to do? Do we need to start making Atlas sources? How are we going to do that? How do we want to do that? Should I just have the one? Should we make like one big Atlas source or should we keep them split up like they are now? We should probably keep them split up like they are now, but maybe not. So like, where would these files be? Environment, tile, new. I really need to clean this up. This is like, we had just gotten into a good spot. So here's like our basic thing. This will never scale correctly. Ever. Oh, there's a question. Do we want to draw the outline separately from the underlying tiles? Maybe. So do I want to store these in separate textures? Probably. Like just Godot handle the combining and uploading to the GPU because that's going to happen anyway. My only other thought is like trying to build larger atlases out of groups of these, but I think we experimented with that. And I think we found that that doesn't really work well for us. What we do need to figure out is the regions that we need for everything. And how that works. So we will need to figure that out for this stuff. The future of game dev is just thinking in an ice tub. Yeah. I don't know. I would be uncomfortable hanging out in an ice tub. I'd be worried that someone would come along and just like take one of my kidneys. And I need those. Partly because I don't drink enough water. Nix, not giving me enough hydrate redeems. I'm actually gonna go grab some more water while we're here in ads. Thank you all for hanging out today. Appreciate you. Be right back. One sec. All right, we're back with water. We're back with more water. More water and less music, apparently. Come on, Pretzel. There we go. Nix, you know you could set me up with an automation to send those hydrates every 3 minutes. Careful what you wish for. Good point. Good point. Forget I said anything. I should be paying you channel points for making me hydrate, you know? You know what I'm saying? All right. So the part that's changing is we're not getting tiles anymore. So we could just recreate this without the tile part, I guess. So let's start recreating this. Now it's time to open this system. Our canvas item drawing system. Open. Oh, I guess I just open it and then I split it right. Split and move right. Get rid of that. All right. What are we keeping and what are we getting rid of? So the source ID stuff is going away. What's not going away is this block tier count, but I think we can access that now by block game.block. What was it? It was like game.z. Oh my god. Why can't I access any of this stuff? What happened to your public constants? Block z level count. Why don't I have access to that? I thought I made one of those. Public constant. Why is that inaccessible? Should it just be static? I feel like it could be constant. Maybe I don't understand. Oh. Does this not have access to the right namespace? No. Maybe I don't understand. That's fine. I don't have to understand. I don't have to understand anything. Now I can say game.block. No, why can't I access anything from in here? Can I access it from here? Yeah, I can access it from in here. What is happening? What's your using list? I'm a little confused, but that's fine. Let's not get bogged down with my confusion. You only have 106,000 channel points? Oh, yeah, that's barely any. Barely any. Get it? Yeah, that's great. Suddenly we're writing code and doing stuff. We're messing around. We're looking at what we would take and what we won't be taking from the tile drawing system. Right now I'm running into this thing where I don't seem to have access to my own game class for some reason from this new system. I don't totally understand why. Because I didn't write this. No, you still don't understand any of it. Bon appetit, Arnio. Potatoes and beef already. Oh, that's your meat and potatoes right there. Take it easy. All right, so what do we want? We do want to keep track of the hulls. We want to keep track of more than just that. Maybe not. So let's just let's start with that. Let's not worry about doors right now. But we might need to worry about doors soon. Should we just say like hull faces? Yeah, we'll say hulls. So why is nothing happy with me right now? Get that in there. Get that in there. I still don't understand why I don't have access to the game class from in here. All right, the tile set formats we kind of need, but we need something else. We need to call it like sprite atlas format or something like that. Because these aren't tile sets anymore. There's something else. I guess you could think of them as sprite atlases. Maybe I just call them texture atlases, though. I don't know. I think texture atlas is better. Texture atlas is kind of like a sprite sheet. Although the texture at Godot is kind of going to be making our texture atlas, right? Let me push those textures over. We're gonna call it a texture atlas though. Say public entity ID texture atlas format. Sounds official. And this will be the thing that this will be the thing that kind of manages the conversion between the autotiler to the actual texture atlas. So it'll tell us, hey, we want this image from the texture atlas. We want the image that would be stored here on the texture atlas given this autotiler result. Where is it? And that's going to be there. There will also probably be a cutaway block thing, but let's not worry about the cutaway blocks right now. I do kind of want like an interface for instead of just having every system be kind of the Wild West, it could be like whatever it wants to be. I mean, I'm being consistent about it, but like there's nothing constraining it. All I really have decided is that they have a ready function and a run function. Here's another thing I'm a little concerned about the canvas item drawing stuff is our systems all run on the physics process step. I'm a little concerned about how that's going to impact the rendering stuff. So, texture, atlas, format. Probably this should be the default texture atlas format, but you know, it's going to be like, eventually it's going to be a registry. There's going to be like a texture atlas format registry, or maybe there will just be a texture atlas registry where you can get formats. And you can, for like mod content, you can register additional texture atlas formats you might use. And then there will be a default one or something like that. We'll probably, yeah, because this is what we're doing. We have game.assets.default tileset atlas format. That's currently what we're doing. So we'll probably similarly have a default texture atlas format. Let's go get game.assets. I don't have a class for this. I kind of don't want this to be a class, but it's easier at the moment for it to be a class. I kind of want it to be a structure, an immutable structure. All right, so if we look at this and we make a new one of these, where even is this? Tile set Atlas format. That over here. We need to recreate one of these for one thing. So at the moment, what we have is we have the X tile coords, the Y tile coords, the Z tile coords. So this is how we get it. And then eventually we put it into a buffer where we split these up into separate buffers. I don't like that. And I kind of don't want to do that anymore. Why don't I want to do that? It has some weird interaction with tile drawing, and I'm trying to remember what it is. Is there a way to, like, hide this temporarily? I could unsplit it. And now it's here for some reason. Okay. Just close everything else. We're really not doing very much with the rest of the system today. Oh. Managing these windows is kind of annoying sometimes. Hey, Mardicus. How's it going? It's going good, considering I'm Mardicus. How's it going for you? Happy Saturday. We're taking a major detour here. We're gonna try to re-implement our drawing system using canvas item draw calls instead of tile map layers. And we're at the dipping our toes into the pool kind of phase of it. We'll probably do the serious work on it next week, after I have some more time to think about it. So what I don't love is that we have separate buffers for each of these. And I don't totally see why. I kind of see why. But now I also see X and Z, and I don't love that. Hey. Do I eat kiwis with skin or without skin? I don't eat people. No, I'm just kidding. But, I don't eat kiwis. I feel like when I've been served kiwis, people just remove the skin. Marcus, good. You unfortunately went off Godot, back to just coding everything. You seem to like making systems more than game content. That's fine. I think it's great in this day and age to be like an engine programmer. As long as you're aware that that's what you're doing, I think that's great. We're kind of getting there ourselves because we seem to be using less and less of Godot and more of our own rolled stuff. But I'm hopeful for Canvas Item. Canvas Item is high enough level node. It's like a high enough level construct that the engine is still saving us a lot of effort in terms of instanced rendering and like batching stuff and like managing the memory being shipped over to the GPU. That I'm happy with the level at which we're going to be interacting with the engine, but it is we're definitely digging in a little deeper. You just learned it's healthier to eat kiwis with skin. I think that's true for a lot of things, as long as the skin isn't like toxic, which a lot of them are because of what we treat. Depending on where you're from, what your produce is being treated with, the skin can be like not good. It can be not good inherently, but it can also be not good in terms of like all the crap on it. But like potato skins are good for you, right? They got a lot of the minerals. So yeah, that definitely makes some sense. Hey, Push Toy, how's it going? Happy Saturday. You've learned that you can make people look at you weird when you eat the skin of the kiwi. Or the kiwi with skin on or whatever. Yeah, I bet you can. I bet you have a whole tool belt of like ways you can make people look at you weird. Most of us do. How's it going? We're going all right. We're heading down a new path here for for what I would consider our rendering module. And I'm kind of delaying by engaging with chat because this is going to be hard and it annoys me. So why do I not like having the buffers defined separately? I have a distinct feeling about why I don't. One of them is every time I call this, I get them separately. The other time is I think the only reason these are different functions, ostensibly, is because of this buffer thing we're having to put in. But you know, that might be okay. So we get a buffer, we get this Atlas chords. So we could just say, yeah, it would be kind of annoying to have it as one buffer, I guess. I guess we just keep on keeping on to an extent here. So go back to this. We're gonna split this right. We're gonna do this. So the first thing doing is we're recreating our texture atlas format. So right now it's just simple X tile chords, Y tile chords, Z tile chords, and then a measure of the tiles across and down. There is a question of if we want to say what the size of the tiles are. I think there's an argument to be like, yes, we should say what size the tiles are. We could hard code it, but I think it would be a good idea to have it written down. So we could say like X tiles across, X tiles down. What are the regions of So we could call them subtextures, sprites, tiles, or regions. How would you keep calling them tiles? We could say X face, actually. Heading down a new path sounds ominous. It is a bit, but the way I was talking about it before is that we found a local maximum in terms of what we could do with tile map layer, and it is not satisfactory. So we are going to see if we can find a better local maximum using canvas items. And you know what? That is something that we're just going to have to explore and experiment to find out, to really know. Oh, I talk about chat all the time, Nix. I like to say we, as in I like to distribute some of the blame from myself to you for the decisions I make. That works for me. Yeah, I guess I can decide whether I want to call them tiles. And so these are vector 4 eyes because these are the auto tiler coordinates. But what we actually have recorded here, so what we have here is we have linearly stored the auto-tiler coordinates, right? Let me make sure I understand what we're doing with this format thing. I think that's right. Because then what we're doing is when we grab this format thing, we go through the xtile coords.length linearly. We set the coords as being whatever the xtile coords at that index is. And then we record that in the x buffer as coords.x plus coords.y times 4 plus coords.z times 16 plus coords.w times 64. So we basically store it flattened. We take the auto-tiler coordinates, we flatten them, and then that gives us, and we store the index in the raw, just little tile map list. That kind of works. It's probably a better way to do that. I don't know if I care, but there's probably a better way to do that. I don't know if I guess we want to make some distinction between the X and the Y faces and the Z faces, because they are different sizes. They have different offsets from the center of the quote unquote tile that they're being drawn, which we need to apply manually to the canvas layer position. Satisfactory, you mean the game? You're making a mathematical maximization function joke. Satisfactory is a pretty game. Man, it did not grab me, which is a shame. We've talked about it before. I want my survival crafting games to push back against me harder. I want a little more survival. You know what I wish I could do? I wish I could play Subnautica again for the first time. I love that game. I've tried playing it for a second time, and it's just like, maybe I just don't have time for it this time. But man, definitely my favorite experience. All right, format Z-tile coords. So the Z-tiles don't have corner pieces. Is that reflected here? Yeah, it is, huh? Yeah, let's just not mess with this too much for now. Let's just add stuff to this for now, just to make it easier to implement. We can always change this later. This is all being read out from a JSON file anyway. I can probably still call them X-tiles. You say X-face tile coords. We're making like a kind of mosaic. Fix the missing references. Why are you upset with this? Oh, set and init. Oops. So we want across, we want down, we also want size. So we could have it be a vector 2. We could say vector 2i x face tile size. It's probably the best thing to do. Probably had said position and size, but whatever, who cares? I said the max is not satisfactory. Oh, yeah. I mean, I agree with that in the sense of satisfactory is definitely not the local maximum either. I'm in my long variable phase again, I guess. My long variable name phase. Can I just have it be like count.x? I could store these separately as like width and height. Maybe we just store it as count instead of separate variables. Do this a little differently. I don't know if I care about the vertical. I kind of want the number, the width. I don't really care about the height. Maybe I do. Maybe I don't, though. I definitely care about the size. Guess I care about the count. All right, we'll just duplicate this 3 times. Except that the third one is going to be a vector2 array. No, that's not the other. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. And then where we build this, where do we build these? There's some process where we build this. I guess it's here, isn't it? How do I read this in? I think that's happening on the game script. Oh, God. This never works the way I want it to. There we go. All right, so this is what we got. We got property hint.file.json, private string, default tile set, atlas format. So I want one. I still have this. I want another one temporarily because, again, we're kind of doing this in parallel so that we can just swap between the implementations just for testing purposes. What is this? What did I say it was? JSON? Or is this just file? Oh, property hint.file. And then I specify what kind of file it is. Kind of going to be pleased to not be using tile sets. I don't love tile sets, if I'm being super honest. I really don't. I'll be kind of pleased not to be working with them. Excuse me for the water drinking sounds. I think I'm going to make this, I think I'm going to call this default so that I think it's going to be fine to have an entity that's a default. Eventually I'll move it to some kind of register where you can get the entity that you want or whatever, get the format, somehow store it in a way where you can get more than one. You can get whichever one you need. Okay, so we want to do this. Assets dot. So this still needs to be replaced. So we're just going to copy this whole thing. We're going to say default texture atlas format. Texture atlas format. Read all text, globalize path, default texture atlas format. So is the reason this is a class? So there's a t value. Is there requirements about what the t value is? Why did I make this a class? Require dynamic code. Require unreferenced code. Yeah, there's some reason I did it this way. I'm going to not worry about it right now. All right, so we're going to get our texture atlas format. Oh, I guess what I need, which I don't have, is I need a definition for how that gets formatted. How did I do that? Or was that part of the... No. Somewhere I have a definition for this of how the serializer is supposed to work. Somewhere there's like how we define how a thing gets read in. Like a serializable thing. Oh, I think that was implemented at the vector level, wasn't it? So yeah, vector 4i converter. So this is just a way of reading vectors out of... Right. So is there something else going on here? In our default format, JSON? Okay, so I need to copy this, and I need to make a slightly different one. I need to duplicate this. I kind of want to put this somewhere else, but you know, I also don't care. We'll say default texture atlas format. We'll give it a big long name. And we'll rename this one default tile set atlas. So this is going to be, we're going to reorder this a little bit. We're going to say X base tile count. It's an array, and it's going to be 8 by 6. And this is going to be X face tile coords, and it's not going to change. Should probably call this something else, but you know, whatever. We could do a version of this where we don't really pay attention to the X face and the Y face and the whatever, and we just describe the whole atlas at once. But I don't think that's the right move. And I can already think of a couple ways why it's not the right move. We want X face tile. What did I say? Size. And that's an array, and that is, what's the size of an individual tile? 16 by 12 for an X face. 16 by 12. Now we're going to do the same thing down here. We'll say Y face tile count. And that is also 8 by 6. I hand coded these. I hated that. We're gonna need a better process for that. But then again, I probably won't need to use another format than this for this kind of stuff. We might eventually. If we introduce animations, that might complicate this. We'll see. We'll see. I'm really interested to see if we can store the different tile faces in the same canvas item, which I think we can because there's no overlap between them anymore, which we did when we changed how they're outlined. We'll say Y face tile size. That's an array. It is the same, so it's 16 by 12. There's some stuff baked into the concept of whether it's a Y face tile or a Z face tile or whatever, but that's mostly around where's the offset based on the center of the tile. So like I already talked about it. Whereas the X's are drawn to the right, the Y's are drawn to the left, and the Z's are drawn physically above. Hey, Lacutus of Frog. How's it going? Happy Saturday. Lacutus of Frog. Z face tile. We want Z face tile count. And that is the Z face tile is different. So Z face tile is 4 by 4. Oops. 4 by 4. Oh, it's a little late. The hour is later than I feared. All right, we'll probably finish this up. Just flying through space on your bog cube. Nice. Yeah, it's good. We're getting ready to do a pretty big experiment on an alternative way to draw all of our tiles. We're kind of laying the groundwork for it. We're not quite ready to get started. That'll probably be next week. Z-face tile coords. I'm gonna feel really stupid if I store these as vectors and I only ever use like one part of it. What are the sizes of these? Also, where is... The empty pixel is at the bottom. Okay, that's important to know. It is here. So these are 32 by 8. Big surprise. 32 by 8. All right, cool. Cool. It's 1 a.m. there, Nix. Well, it's not late anymore. Now it's early. To get to that point. Let's like visually break these sections up. All right. So if we got that, that's something. That's something. So what we will be able to do then is we'll be able to build out a format. So this is texture atlas index buffer. Thanks for the hydrate, Nix. Good thing you woke up at 4 p.m. You're fresh as a cucumber that's dehydrated. That's funny. All right, so what we'll have to do next is we'll have to build out these format buffers. I'm still not convinced this is how I want to store them. Still not convinced. So format is that. If it's a null, there is none. Otherwise, grab that. So let's make it not null, huh? Let's plug this in here. Rebuild error? Rebuilding error? No. Okay, this is the same, sort of. Not really. So we'll put this here. There we go. We'll put this path here. There we go. Mardicus, after some careful consideration, you're still going to use Godot for rendering. You think you're going my way with decoupling the logic of the game. That is a classic maneuver, separating the simulation layer from the underlying rendering. There are so many advantages to doing that. I would not be able to name them all. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff I don't want to manage either, which is why I think we're going to rely on canvas item for our drawing. I think we're happy with that. So yeah, follow along. We might try some of the things that you might be interested in doing, because we're going to be doing some low-level, quote-unquote, low-level drawing, insofar as we're going to be telling Godot what we want to draw, which will have the advantage of we won't need nodes for characters or things. Like, we won't need really nodes for anything, because all that Godot wants to know about is what do we draw and what's interactable from a UI standpoint. Locutus as opposed to what way? Oftentimes, and the default way when you just use an engine, is that there is no distinction between the rendering and the gameplay logic. Like if you have a sprite 2D that is a character, that sprite 2D is the character. Like, it runs around, it has a transform position, it might have some physics components. Like, the default with these engines is the thing that's being rendered is the simulation object. Like, there's no difference. But if you instead, even if you just have a sprite separate from some other thing, and then all you're doing is telling the sprite where it should be and determining the gameplay stuff somewhere else, that's like uncoupled. That's like decoupling. It's like calculating all the gameplay stuff that needs to happen and then just rendering what needs to be seen as a separate, uncoupled things. Because there's definitely stuff that can happen. There's definitely stuff that's easier and stuff that's harder, depending on whether it's coupled or not. But like, the default is that it is, because that's just kind of how our game engines are built generally. Like, whether you're talking about a Unity game object or you're talking about a node. And I think it has to do with the fact that the update loop is associated with the object. Like, we have the component pattern that we use in these engines, whereas if you separate it, you can do some neat stuff. Like, you can have systems processing instead of object processing, and there's some cool stuff you can do. Like a parent node holding components, but maybe different entirely. Kind of different. Hey, it's 2Bob. MVC. I know what that means, but I've forgotten. But yeah, I think that's a framework that helps describe it. The model view controller. Yeah. Distinguishing the model of the data and the rules from the user's view into it. That's a good model to think about it in, for sure. Yeah. What would a low-level way be? Have a scene that connects the simulation logic and then have that call objects for positioning, etc. ECS is a way. That's not the only way. You could even do it differently. Like if you were like, the expensive thing is rendering this stuff. You could just have, you don't even need to do anything different. You could just have a set of nodes that are the simulation nodes, and they do their little thing, and you move them around and you position them and you do blah, 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 blah. And then like later on, after you've done all the gameplay step, you could just be like, all right, these ones need to be rendered. Give them little rendering nodes. Like, so you could still do it on an object level. You don't have to jump off the deep end and go to systems processing with like an ECS, but it is tempting to do so once you've separated the rendering from the gameplay, because then there's no real reason to think about the rendering object as being this thing that has to exist. It also is nice to not think about the gameplay object as a thing that has to exist. It's kind of nice to not do that stuff, but it's one of those a million ways to skin a cat kind of problems, I think. But yeah, I think the mindset of there's a world, and then there is the player's view into the world. And in a lot of places, in the typical solution in a game engine is that those things are tightly coupled. But if you can uncouple them, there's all these things that you could do. You don't have to. I don't do it if I'm doing a jam game. When I make a jam game, I'm never like, let me see how we uncouple the gameplay model from the rendering model. I mean, I might do that if I'm talking about tile maps, because I might render out, here's all the ways the tile things move around, and then at the very end, I tell the tile map what to draw. I like doing that sort of thing. So I guess I do kind of do it. I kind of tend to do it no matter what. But yeah, it doesn't even imply, doing that separation doesn't even require you to use a manager or system. You could just have separate representations. That's already like a huge gain, to just have a separate rendering representation from the simulation representation. But the advantage that comes is that they don't have to be different, but they could be way different. Because the rendering representation cares about many different things than the simulation one does. And that's where you can start to add some asymmetries to the representation, and then that eventually you start to go down a path of crazy stuff to pursue some kind of data-driven development. You don't have to. There's no reason you have to do these things. At some point, you'd have to connect a simulation node to something visual, right? So maybe if the thing can be seen, maybe it can't be seen. Maybe it's not on screen. Maybe it's not even a visual thing. Maybe it has no visual representation. Maybe it's just a simulation object. Like, similarly, you could have rendering objects that don't really have a corresponding simulation object. You could have effects or, particles and stuff. Like, it's interesting. There's interesting stuff you could do once you start decoupling the gameplay from the rendering. Another simple test is, can the game run without any graphics? Yeah, that's correct. That's a great test too, Bob. If it can, yeah, you're probably operating on the level where you've split it up correctly. That's a good point. Well, okay, but just simulation objects also exist in normal Godot projects. No. I'm saying you don't need to do anything different architecturally. You could just have a list of nodes that are rendering nodes and a list of nodes that are simulation nodes. You could do it like that. That's not like the best way to do it to take advantage of the split, but like they don't have to be different. There's just a lot of stuff you can do if they are different. You get the idea. Yeah, I'm sure you do. It's an insidious idea because your mind starts thinking about all the different little ways you could change stuff. It's a nice idea. To Bob, like the noise that represents the traffic in SimCity, never seen, ever present. Yeah, SimCity is great. SimCity is a great example because everything you're seeing in SimCity is like statistical. It's not the Walker model, which the Walker model is like when there's actually a character that has to run around and deliver the logs from A to B or whatever. SimCity, the old SimCity games, maybe the new ones, but SimCity originally had like a very different idea about that, where the simulation was very different and governed by and operated at a very different object level. Like it operated on different things than the rendering system cared about. And then you got to see traffic, right? Because it would simulate traffic, but that's different than, yeah, whatever. People understand. I don't need to explain this anymore. There's like a million ways you could describe the same thing. Locutus, true. Often you just toggle the visibility of the node. But if you decouple it from the beginning, yeah. See? If you decouple it from the beginning, there's some different stuff you can do. Usually the best part is just, not the best part, but usually the first thing is when you look at an object, the parts of a game object that are really quote-unquote heavy are usually the rendering components and the simulation components, like the physics. And so it's like, if you could get away with not having the rendering component all the time, yeah, you could just toggle visibility. But you could also just not have it in the first place, right? There's some fun stuff. It's a fun way to think about it. And I think some games benefit from that, well, a lot. Other games don't. But some games do, I think. Hey, Nix, what'd you miss? Are we already stopping? We're wrapping up. We are wrapping up. We're hitting the 3-hour mark. And it's Saturday, and I'm tired. But, I think we had a good stream. I think I have an idea for how we're going to do this canvas item thing. Nahik? I don't know how to pronounce your name. I'm sorry. You're working full-time as a developer. You tried your first time with Godot game development. You're overwhelmed by GDScript because it's so odd and yet so easy, which makes it hard, again, for you to understand. Any tips to get used to that? You could just not. If you know C#, you could probably use C#. If you know C++, you could use that. If you like Rust, you can bind it to Rust nowadays. There are serious caveats with using a different programming language, but like, I get you. I've been using GDScript for years, but I almost only ever use it during game jams because our main project is mostly written in C#. And I have to remember how GDScript works pretty much every time I touch it. So I haven't gotten over that either. Yeah, it's tough. But it's one of those things, it's like if you get over that, it's a very simple language. It's really just for, calling into APIs with some logic, right? So it's like it's very good at that. If all you're doing is really calling Godot API stuff, it's pretty straightforward, managing simple loops and things. But I feel you. I would consider, if you're like way more comfortable with C# or something, maybe try that. Maybe give that a try. Keep in mind the current limitations, but you mainly code in Pascal. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know any Pascal. To Bob, you missed 15 people reviewing decoupling low-hanging fruit for the last 20 years in gaming. So not much, honestly. That's funny. All right, y'all are hilarious. I think we're gonna wrap things up. I appreciate everyone hanging out today, especially all the lurkers over on YouTube. I see you. I appreciate you. Let me snooze the next ad so it doesn't go off during the wrap up here. Hey, thank you for the follow. Yeah, we also have a Discord. If you want, it's full of Godot developers. We're still a small community, if it's not clear from my viewer count. But we've been working on this project for a couple of years. We got a lot of people working on other projects. So if you have troubleshooting issues of like learning Godot or just want to talk about it or just see what other people are doing, we have a Discord. We stream Tuesday through Saturday most weeks, give or take, So this is the end of my streaming week here, but we'll be back on Tuesday. Usually a little earlier than this. This is pretty late for us. The Saturday stream is usually later than the regular stream. I just have to do this from my hot tub wrestling alligators. I'd be front page overnight. True. True. We'll work our way up to that. We'll work our way up to that. So yeah, I really appreciate you all. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And I'll see you all next time. Bye.